Now, get ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Hey, it's Michael here from Oilers Live. A little bit of a false start tonight. Had some technical problems and some other issues that needed to be taken care of. But we're here. Everybody's got audio, so you'll be able to listen to our guests. You'll be able to even see Mr. Mike Dirsa and myself. So we're going to try this all over again. I deleted the old Twitter video just so that nobody can see what's a mess up of a pretty fine podcast. Welcome, Lars, to the Oilers live stream.
Thanks for having me.
And this is remarkable because people actually heard that. That's great. And just for those that are listening, I mean, Lars said some really brilliant stuff when he was on mute. In fact, I mean, he pretty much laid out the plans on how we can reduce the impact of the COVID-19, and he went on. He knows his medicine and his science, and well done, Lars. It's too bad that we don't have time to repeat all that, but just happy to have you here. And hey, it's been a long time.
Yeah, too long. And I think that not only did I lay out that, but really gave the Oilers a roadmap on how to win the Stanley Cup when it comes back. So that would have been useful. But I think we would get spoiled with too many championships.
That's right. That's right. So we'll just lose that into the ether. Yeah. And Mr. Dirsa, welcome. Good to hear you too. I'm sure everybody else be happy to hear your voice on the other side.
Yeah, or not.
Or not, yeah.
Humble and grounded, that's me.
That's right. So we're all here tonight. We're doing a live stream, of course, Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays, most of the time at 8:30, sometimes at 8:57, depending on how things go. To have some lighthearted conversation, maybe talk a little bit of hockey. If there's, we're on, I want to say like episode 5 of the live stream. If not 6, and I'm running out of new hockey stories to tell. So Lars, I hope you have some. We did have a request from Mr. Brit Luchansky, who definitely wants us to ask you about your run-in with him on the. I don't even know where he ran into
Vegas trip.
On the Vegas trip, yeah.
That was great. So I want to just give a quick shout out to Reed Wilkins, who had a funny tweet yesterday where, he's still doing the 6 o'clock, sports, Inside Sports on 6:30 Ched.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because he's like, some guy tweeted at him like, why are you talking about hockey when or talking about sports when there's no sports going on? This is stupid. You're dumb. Da, da, da.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Because whenever a troll comes on like that, and they've listened, they listen to his show for hours, or they're listening to this one. I like that you're creating content, doing something creative. I think is very positive, and fans listen in. They want to hear different opinions, or just to something to pass the time. So I love it. I think it's great. I'm a fan of the show, and whenever somebody trolls me, I go, look, this is my thought. For your listeners who might not know, I've been a professional comedian for 12 years. And so when somebody says something about my comedy, like, you're not funny, I go, look, I might not be the best looking. I might not be the smartest. I might not be the most successful. Wait, what were we talking about? I might be a little chubby. I might not own property. Wait, what are we saying? Just to tear yourself apart, to be like, okay, what? Like, what do you want to say? You want to say something rude about me? And I saw a funny one today when people try and troll Oilers fans. It's like nobody hates themselves more than an Oilers fan. Like, what do you do? So it was. So we were at the Oilers game in Las Vegas, and so what I do is, this is a little. It's clever. I'll give myself clever on this. were the Boy Scouts, I'd get my clever badge. So what I do is I book a week at a comedy club wherever the Oilers are playing. So when the Oilers went over to the preseason in Cologne, Germany, and they played Dreisaitl's dad's team, well, there's a comedy club in Cologne, Germany. It's called Boing. Great comedy club. The guy who runs it, Manuel Wolf, super, super funny comedian. So they do it in English. And so what I did was I booked a night at the comedy club when the Oilers were in Cologne, Germany. So the club is full of people from Edmonton or Oilers fans or people that follow me on Twitter. So when I go to do a club in Cologne, Germany, and I sell out 100 tickets, people are like, how famous is this guy that he can sell 100 tickets in Cologne, Germany? This is insane. And so I don't tell them that I booked it, at the same time that the Oilers were playing there. I just book it and then say, hey, I can get everybody, 25% off or whatever. So I do the same thing in Vegas. So this is the third year that I've performed in Vegas when the Oilers were there. So I take the night off in the comedy club where the Oilers are there. So two of my comedian friends were at the game, both of them celebrities, like pretty well-known comedians. And when he came up, he said, hey, can I get a picture? And I'm standing there talking to two people whose celebrities dwarf mine, and mine is almost non-existent, so it doesn't take a lot to do that. And I might not be the best looking. I might not be the most famous. I might not be the most successful. Wait, what are we saying? So anyway, so he came up and asked for a picture with me, and I'm standing there talking to two people who are better known than I am, and it ended up making me look like more of a celebrity than I was. And it was so, hey, could you guys just move out of the way so I could take a picture with Lars? Would you guys mind getting so it ended up being great. I told him after, I said, hey, just so you know, those were like celebrity comedians that you basically asked to get out of the shot.
No.
Like going up to Russell Peters and being like, can I get you to like move aside? You're kind of in my picture with my comedian friend here. And you're like, what? I'm Russell Peters. So but anyway, it was really funny. So I've used the Edmonton Oilers and piggybacked on their fandom to make myself look more famous around the world. It's clever. It's clever.
That does remind me of probably one of the have you watched the Absolutely Fabulous movie?
No.
Ed Sheeran's in a bar, and the two stars of the movie, they're drunk and they see him and they're like, oh my god, and they give him the camera to take a picture of them. Like he's all getting excited to get a picture, and they say like, can you take a picture of us? So no, that's very similar. Not a big surprise. Mr. Luchansky, by the way, he's been making the media tours. He's kind of a big deal himself. I guess he was on CTV today, and he's got his own segment on the Oilerslive live stream. Rip the Ref.
Right on.
Yeah. He's and who would have thought, right? Like a ref. Right? Like somebody who makes bad calls their whole life. And now he's finally making some good calls. So there you have it. And that brings us all the way back to hockey.
And I think it's a blind squirrel finds an acorn every now and then. So
that's right. Yeah. Blind ref makes a call every now and again. Yeah, they really should.
Like just, I hit him with a good one, Lars. I said, so a ref walks into a bar, and then into a table, and then into a chair.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Brett's been good and a good sport and a lot of fun to have on. We so Lars, is there anything you've been doing? I know you're a big Oilers fan, but are you as hockey starved as the rest of us? Are you doing anything to kind of get a hockey fix, or does it really matter that much to you?
So this is I'm definitely hockey starved. I think that I've watched more hockey this year than I have in any other year, so I feel a little bit to blame. because I finally allowed myself to relax from going out and doing a comedy show every single night for 16 years. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to watch a little bit of hockey this year. And so, the one year I decide to finally start to watch the Oilers, the season gets postponed. So it's probably my fault. I've tried to watch a couple of the older games. So, they were showing an Edmonton Flames game the night before last, and I tried to watch it. I'm like, if you know what the final score is, it just takes all the fun out of it. Like, there's no drama. So I found that to be, no, as far as sports is concerned, I've been, I got back from Australia 8 days ago. So it's been trying to occupy my time in and around my house for the past 8 days. And then, thinking about friends and family and what they're doing, I will say something positive about this. So I've never enjoyed it when somebody takes sports too seriously. So I love the Oilers. I love hockey, but I never understood when a Toronto fan or a Calgary fan got into it like malice. I never understood somebody being malicious, saying something mean about somebody or wishing harm on somebody. I never really understood that. And even from a few Oilers fans, so, we're not completely innocent of stuff like that, but I never understood when it got to that level, because they don't let us hoist the Stanley Cup. They don't let us go to the party where the champagne is getting poured if they win the championship. Never. And so when it gets, I'm like, I always go, hey, it's really fun to chirp other fans. If you've got something funny, chirp them. If you've got, a nice little burn, I think it should always kind of be in fun, because it might as well be World Wrestling Entertainment. Like, it's not pre-scripted, but at the same time, if somebody offers your favorite player more money and they go play for the other team. I remember when Johnny Damon went from the Boston Red Sox to the New York Yankees, and all of the Boston Red Sox fans were, oh, I can't believe he went to another team. And there was this really great Sports Illustrated article, and it said, as soon as a player shows a little bit of a decline, the fans are like, get rid of him, cut him, trade him, get rid of him, cut him, trade him. And so there's no loyalty from a fan when it comes to, whether or not a player is producing. So why would we expect the same loyalty to a team from a person who's just doing this as a business? And so when I read that article, it really helped me understand, they're not loyal to a team, like you want to protect your teammates. That's what we all do in every sport we've ever played. But if, the idea is to be respectful and classy. And so I like that. I have this tweet I was just about to send it probably 4 or 5 days ago, and it just seemed a little bit too, basically the wording of it was, what I like about this is that Maple Leafs fans and Canucks fans, maybe they will take a step back, Flames fans, and realize that hockey is not life or death. This is like, keep it lighthearted, keep it fun. You can trash talk the other team, but as soon as people start to make it personal, I always go, whoa. This is not personal. This is silly fun. We're watching our favorite teams. I don't want to go out into a parking lot with somebody over whether or not their goalie stick flip was necessary. I'm like, yeah, he got lit up after. That made me happy, but I'm not going to argue with you as a human being, and over sports, So I hope that everybody allows there to when everything returns and knock on wood, we get everything to some semblance of normal, that we realize that sports are just for fun. It's a wonderful hobby and a delightful distraction. And I love my team as much as the next person, but I don't want anybody. I hate Kachuk because he's a cheap shot artist. I detest that kind of behavior, but I still don't want to see him injured. I don't wish that on the player that I hate most in the world. So I hope that we get back, and I hope that everybody just kind of takes it a little bit less seriously. Just have some fun with it.
It's entertainment.
Supposed to be fun.
Yeah,
it's entertainment, precisely.
Yeah, I mean, it is entertainment, and it's funny because I agree with you, but at the same time, right? Like, there's nothing more cultural than sport, right? I mean, it's been around forever, and so I had Dale Sheehan on. He's with the it's a long, big acronym, but basically for integrity of sport. He's with the International Association for the Integrity of Sport. I just butchered it. I'm not sure what the name is of the. Anyway, Dale. Sorry, Dale, if you ever listen to this. I said, and they do this. They've got a tip line where they have people calling in for match fixing and that type of thing. And it's interesting, right? Because off air, I remember talking to him about, like, really how important is it, right? And for some nations, and of course, Canada's not one of them. That's what they got, right? That's their pride, right? Is football, soccer, whatever it is. And so it, while it's not life and death, and they acknowledge that, it's so important to the culture of a community, just like the Oilers are. Super important to bringing Edmontonians together, and expats like myself together to talk about a certain sport. So yeah, but I do get it. I mean, it's not, there's so much business in the NHL now and the NFL and Major League Ball that it maybe doesn't hold the same truth to it that, say, playing for Team Canada does. Where it's playing for your country. You don't really play for your city, I guess, but at the same time, there's something magical about it, something really great, and if I can get tickets to the first game back, I'm going to be there. I'm not sure I'll be crying in the stands when the when the anthem goes, but you never know. I might be that guy.
Well, sure.
Right? Yeah, it's going to be pretty magical when it is back.
Yeah, and I don't ever mean to diminish something that means something to other people. I never liked it when somebody goes, talk about reality TV, and they're like, you watch Bachelor, that's stupid. I'm like, if it brings somebody joy, and it's not hurting anybody else, then let them have that joy. I love that people have joy. There's a friend of mine that I've known for 15 years who's one of the executive producers of Big Brother Canada. He's been one of the producers of Big Brother for 10 years. And I love that he has a great job that he loves. And so I don't diminish the impact of sports. But when it comes to when I see two people, a Calgary Flames fan and an Edmonton Oilers fan, going at each other on social media. Yeah, well, you're a terrible person. Or, oh, yeah, if I ever see you, I'm going to knock your block off. And I'm like, this is, guys.
It's perspective.
Like, the Edmonton, yeah, really. And you're right. I mean, national pride or the pride in your city of a football team, Manchester United fans are huge. And that it is an identity, certainly. And I love the World Juniors, and I love Olympic hockey. That's my nobody bothered me during the World Juniors. I was waking up every day at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning to watch this year's. And then my roommate said to me, "Hey man, why don't you just PVR these?" I was like, "Oh yeah." But for my whole life, I've always set an alarm and gone and watched the game live. So I absolutely am a huge fan of hockey. I just don't like it when people really think that there's the allegiance to their city or their team would ever get to a point where they would want to, get into a fight over it. I'm like, wait, there are far more, serious things in the world than that. But I do love the team, and I certainly, I think you make a great point about the importance of it to not only the city but the people.
I've got a funny story to tell. I'm not told. I'm running out of stories to tell on the live stream, but I do have one. This one's original. Never been told story. So everybody tune in. Get ready. This has not been told on the Oilers Live podcast ever. I have a buddy here. Of course, for those of you that don't know, I reside in Calgary. And I feel like I feel like I should spit every time I say that. Except all my equipment would have a tremendous amount of saliva on it, so I'm not going to spit. So I live in Calgary, and I go to Muay Thai, and so my Muay Thai instructor is a big Flames fan, which I'm like you, if you're a Flames fan, you're a Flames fan. Like I have, it's fun to chirp each other or whatever, but that's where it ends, right? It's, they're still my friends and that. And so his name's Nate. And so Nate and I had this thing going where every year we'd go to the Battle of Alberta, the very first one together. And so I brought a Flames fan into enemy territory with me. And he's a champion Muay Thai fighter who's been, fighting forever. So he's a tough guy. We go second time we went. We were going to. We get a couple of like a double suite or whatever and then. We just go for the night and come back. And we go to the game, Oilers in Calgary, and then we go over to the casino after. I can't remember the name of the one attached to Rogers, but we're at the casino, and I see some folks. I think I met some people that were fans of the podcast, and I go and talk to them, and he goes and sits at a blackjack table or whatever, and so later on, we're good friends, but we don't need to be, hanging around each other all the time. And so I go off, do my thing, and I come back to go find him on my way back, and he's not there. And then I saw that he was standing there. I went and asked this waitress that was serving him. I said, "Did you see where the guy in the Flames jersey went?" And she says, "No, I didn't. But did you just see that big fight that was here?" And I'm like, "No, like I didn't see." And the first thing that goes through my head is he was like there, and she said it was right there, and it was a guy that was at the blackjack table in a Flames jersey got pummeled by like 10 Oilers fans, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so my heart drops, right? Like Nate's about to, like his wife's pregnant, and he's about to have a baby, and so I start asking questions. I ask reception. I go and ask the bouncer, and bouncers, they're always full of lots of information. I'm like, "Can you give me some details about the guy in the fight?" Right? And I'm like, "All right, okay, thanks for all your help." I'm trying to call him, and he's not answering the phone or anything, right? And I'm freaking out. And the only thing I'm not doing is calling his wife because I don't want her to absolutely hate me. So I start asking around it. Everything about it points to him being the guy like that was in the fight, right? Like that some guy was being awful to his girlfriend, and a guy in a Flames jersey stepped in to stop it, and the other guy had a whole bunch of friends there, and so on and so forth. And I'm like, you know what? Nate would probably stick up for a woman in that situation, and so I'm freaking out. I don't call anybody. I'm about to go back to the hotel, grab my stuff, and go to what's the one downtown, the Royal Alex. And I get back in there, and of course, he's sleeping. Right, he's sleeping in a hotel room. I just spent the longest hour and a half of my life, and I'm like. As it turns out, I'm a shitty investigator, right? Like I am no, I'm not the guy that could figure out. I'm obviously terrible at asking investigative questions and figuring out just who or how to talk to somebody and find out who's where and anyway, so yeah, he was sleeping the whole time, and he apparently. He had left maybe 15 or 20. He got tired. He left 15 or 20 minutes. And him and his buddies here in Calgary apparently go and do this at the casino. They go and play some blackjack or whatever and just leave. Like, that's their natural thing. And I'm like, that's not what I do. Like, when I leave a place, I call my friends. And he's like, oh, man, sorry. He says, that's just what we do. And I never even thought about it. So anyway, there's really no punchline to the story other than, like, I'm thinking about some poor guy in a Flames jersey who I don't really know got absolutely pummeled, and it wasn't my buddy. So I guess, I guess that's good. Yeah, Bob the goalie says, Inspector Clouseau, that I am not. I am not. Like,
well,
I'm not getting
2006, funny, I can put a bow on that story for you.
Yeah.
So in 2006, there was a guy who walks into a club wearing a Ducks jersey. Now, my memory is that we would have played the Ducks on that run somewhere along the way when we were going to the Stanley Cup final. And this guy just goes over to him and goes over to this guy in a Ducks jersey and just punches him.
Really?
And so the guy gets up and he's like, what are you doing? And the guy's like, what are you wearing a Ducks jersey for? And the guy turns around and he had got a Ducks jersey made, and on the back it says, sucks.
Oh,
he was
no.
an Oilers fan
who
got a Ducks jersey that he's like, yeah, the Ducks suck, so I'm going to do this as a gag to make fun of their team. And so, I mean, that you would take it, that's, you're like, oh, I can't believe that guy's wearing the other team's jersey. And you're like, yeah, but he was on your side, jackass. Like,
oh, man. I don't really 100% get it, right? Like, what's the, what's the reasoning behind that? I just, I go and have some fun. I was at the Oilers Battle of Alberta game when Tkachuk got ragdolled by Kassian, but we lost the game. I love that game. It was entertaining, and I,
me too.
I left there and I was happy, right? Like, I was just happy to see Kassian ragdoll Tkachuk. But I'm not ready to fight every Flames fan I saw. It's just not. It's not in my DNA to do that. I just want to go out and have, have some fun, and I'm not going to be high-fiving Flames fans. that's where I draw the line. I mean, smile and nod, but like when I was in San Jose. I'm telling story. Every time I'm at an Oilers game, it seems they lose. I was at that San Jose playoff game where they lost 7-0. And the fans were outstanding. Like, the Sharks fans, like when we got there, when we left, to every Oilers fans, they were really welcoming. I think in Calgary, and I think anywhere in Canada, fans can be really awful to opposing fans. I'll never get it. I've heard Boston is really bad. Philadelphia as well, really bad. I would like to think that for the most part, most fans are good, and you get that bad name, one or two guys that are going to do that. I got to say, Leslie Bryant on Periscope, she says, you need to be a woman to have those investigative abilities. She's probably right. I'll give you that. Because, a woman can pretty much spot a lie from a mile away.
Last year, Mike, in the Dome for the last game of the season when Leon got his 50th.
Yeah.
Beeks was right in front of me. We were sitting pretty much on the roof of that old barn, but we had a great time. I had no problems with any Flames fans, and like where we were sitting, Oiler fans were sort of leading the chant because there was a lot of us, and it was let's go Oilers, and then the Flames fans would Oilers suck, but it was great. I mean, hockey's embedded in my soul pretty deep, but I don't want to fight anybody over, cheering for a different team. I don't give a shit. I like my team. I like what we do, and I don't care about your team.
I was at the preseason game where Lucic and Reeder scored this year, and I will say that I did cheer. That's the only time I've ever cheered for Flames players. But being able to see Tobias Reeder score a goal, that was meaningful to me.
Oh man! Yeah, buy a lottery ticket that night.
What's that, Lars?
Well, I was just wondering if you feel like, this is like slowly you end up turning to the dark side. You're basically, Darth Vader, where, first it's cheering for Reeder and Lucic, and then next thing you know, you're like, find yourself cheering for the team a bit, and then next thing I'm on Flames Live.
Bite your tongue, man. Bite your tongue. Wow. I have never, nobody has ever come onto my show and ever insulted me as bad. This is
now Lars' show.
That's right.
Sure. I'm gonna go register Oilers Live just in case.
That's right.
In
Yeah.
case you switch yourself.
Oh man.
That's why he hasn't trademarked Oilers Live yet, hey?
Okay, guys, I am going to let the cat out of the bag on something I'm working on. Not this is to get it off topic here, but okay. I'm kind of excited about this. I'm about 2 to 3 days from releasing it, and Lars, I'm going to want your support on this because it's going to be quite fun. So. Here's the deal. The hockey season, as we know it, I think is over. Most of us think is over. We're in this predicament, this self-isolation, whatever you want to call it, we're going to be here for a little while. So let's have some fun. We have what I think is an amazing Oilers Twitter community, right? Like I think there's no doubt. I mean, there are some real names out there that we all interact with on a regular basis. So over the past couple days, I have taken all of the NHL awards, and I have created an award that is inspired by each of them, and it will be distinctly for Oilers Twitter. And I've created on the back end of my website an ability for people to go and vote. So like the Hart Trophy will be the Oilers MVT, Most Valuable Tweeter. And so, I want to take nominations in a few days for who those people are. And then I want to live stream an awards ceremony. So the Oilers Live, Oilers Twitter Awards, right? And have and then give those awards out. And there, so there's there'll be the Oilers Rookie Tweeter Award, which will be somebody who's Twitter account is less than 2 years old, right? And, and gives back to the Oilers Twitter community, Oilers community, and then also Perseverance Award in honor of the Bill Masterson Award. And what I'm hoping to do, and I haven't talked, I see Jacqueline's on there. That's good because I haven't talked to the Oilers Live Cup committee yet, is I want to find some small little gifts for whoever wins, maybe some gift cards or otherwise. But I think this needs to be an annual thing and something fun to kind of recognize some of the best in Oilers Twitter and just have some fun. Can I get you guys to support that? I think that I can. It'll be a little bit of work, but I've got most of it done and put off to the side, and I think it's going to be fun. And just Jacqueline.
I was thinking
Jacqueline
you were segueing your way into Flames Nation here.
Yeah. Kim says Oilers conversion therapy. She needs it as a Bruins fan. Jacqueline already said she's on it. So anyway, I'm gonna get this going in a few days from now. I'm gonna start taking nominations. I'm gonna need everybody that's listening today and everybody that's you guys that are on here to help, because we really need to push the nominations in order to create a bit of a vote and then go from there and have a little bit of fun. This is all about being positive, right? We all know in the past there have been some really boneheaded votes and contests on Twitter, Oilers Twitter. This is not one of those. I've got some really great things lined up. As I said, starting with the Hart Trophy. I've got one that I thought of was like for the Norris was defender. Who's the best at defending Oilers on Oilers Twitter, right? Like, so when the Chases of this world or the Leah Flames get on, like, who's got the best chirps back, and defends Oilers Twitter. So stuff like that. And every award is really sort of inspired by an actual NHL award, with the exception that I did add in a couple of awards in there for one is the best outsider. So somebody who contributes to Oilers Twitter, but might be like we have one that we know that's part of the Oilerslive committee, and Jeffrey Aid, who's a big Sabres fan, but he he's very active in Oilers Twitter land. So I want to do this and have some fun, and I'm going to need the Oilerslive committee to kind of help out again. I think Mike's looking at me and like, shit, you got work for me to do. Well, I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. So that's that. And that because I wanted to get off this topic of me ever cheering for the Flames. I made that shit up right on the spot, like it was nothing.
Now, did you get this idea because you won the Flames Live Award for Best Outsider?
That's right, Best Outsider. That's right. Oh man.
Just cut to a clip of you clapping as Reader scored.
That's right.
Just Mike on his feet.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
go Reader.
No. It was the only time. It was the only time in my existence that I've ever cheered, and really only because, as I said, I never got a chance to see Reader score, so it was a pretty exciting moment for me.
Yeah, it's like when a blue moon. It's exciting.
That's exactly what it's like. So so that's kind of what I've got planned, and then over the next couple of days, I'm going to release that for nominations, and everybody that's listening and everybody that's I hope that we get everybody involved. In fact, like I just want it to be bigger than a couple people, and have I've got some media stuff in there, and Lady Bing, which will be a really interesting one. Who's the most courteous and respectful in the Oilers Twitter crowd, which I don't. That one's going to be a hard one.
Jenna.
Yeah. You might be right. Like, who knows? And then I don't know. I've just got to figure out how to produce an awards show. Do you have any experience in that, Lars? You've been to a few comedy awards shows, right?
I sure do. I sure have. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've 3 Canadian Comedy Awards and a few others. So absolutely, yeah. I think that's a great idea, and I'd be happy to help out. You get some presenters and some tuxedos and some nice little trophies, and I can do that for you. What we do is we go to Value Village, and you get old bowling trophies.
That's right. Little, what we need is those old hockey participation trophies.
You get little pucks, and you sign them yourself, and then you hand them out.
I'll sign. Yeah,
well,
they'll be worth it.
There's nothing funnier than getting a curling trophy or a hockey social media award, and curling trophies are like $1.50.
Hey,
you got to get like
baseball.
a pure.
I love the idea. Of course, for those people that win, we will just drop them off on your doorstep until such time that we can be within proper distance of you. Yeah. So, hey, what now you're back at home, and do you have any idea of what kind of your plans will be? I mean, are you looking far ahead as to? I imagine for somebody when you're booking stuff like that, this is a tough time, like to kind of plan too far ahead, but you also want to, make sure you've got an income going when we're allowed back out into the real world. What kind of things you got coming up in the next 6 months that you hope are going to be happening?
Well, I founded the Okanagan Comedy Festival in like 7 years ago. So this August, if you're in the Okanagan, Vernon, Penticton, Kelowna, the Okanagan Comedy Festival will be celebrating its 7th year. So we've already started working on that. I hope everybody is healthy and everything's returned to some semblance of normalcy by then. But the Okanagan Comedy Festival, it's on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. So if people want to go there, or if they happen to be in the region, I'm going to be doing. My plan is, and I haven't announced this anywhere. I just basically started the ball rolling when I got home from Australia a couple of days ago. I want to do a telethon. I want to do a 24-hour telethon. So if people aren't already following me on social media, it's Extra Lars, EXTRA Lars, Instagram and Twitter. I want to do a telethon, and I want to see if I can raise, $10,000 to give to entertainers who have children. I don't have any kids of my own, and I know I'm pretty fortunate as far as, I have some savings, and I'm in a position where, knock on wood, it's not too difficult for me to get by, and I have everything I need, basically. So what I want to do is take the following that I have on social media and raise money for entertainers with kids. So that's probably my next project I'm working on. I recorded my a new comedy album in November. So if anybody wants my old comedy album, I don't love it. It was good. It's professionally good. It's on SiriusXM. If anybody wants a copy of that, just send me a DM. I will Dropbox you a free copy of my album from 2011. But I'll finish my new album, and then I'll make that available for free as well. I did video for that. So I have a lot of editing to do to get new content put up on YouTube and everything. So, I'm going to get all that out, and I just want to make it available to people for free. And, people want to hear comedy talk. There's a comedy radio show that I've had for 14 years called Comic Genius, and that's genius with a J. So, that's still recording. I handed it off to a very great comedian and friend, Norm Shaw, a couple of years ago, but I still sit in as a guest, and there's lots of episodes up on comicgenius.ca. But mainly, I want to see if I can raise money for entertainers with kids. That's kind of my, make work project for the next 2 months. If I can figure out a way to raise a bunch of money for people who are in need, that's what I want to do with my time, because I consider myself incredibly blessed that I have such a great following, and you guys do such a great job of fundraising for all of the causes, and it's people pull together when we need to, and I'm proud of Alberta and Oilers fans, and I'm proud of Canada, and I'm proud of the world. I really am. Cheesy as that sounds, I really am. So that's what I got coming up.
Awesome. Well, you know what? That's I think that's great. And if there's anything I can do to help, and I'm sure Mike's feels the same way, you just let us know and help promote it when it comes to it. And absolutely, I think that's a fantastic thing. There are so many so many different areas that are affected in so many different ways by what's going on right now that it's really hard to pick one. And then there's, some of us that are fortunate enough to, still be working and still being able to do what we can do and or have some money put away or whatever. If we can help out in any way, then certainly that's 100% what we should do, because in times like this, if we don't help each other, nobody's going to be around to enjoy. Right. And so, no, that's great. That's great. Do you have, so what's your timeline on that? Like a couple months?
Yeah, I'd like to do that. I'd like to raise the first, and my goal is 10,000. It really is. I see that as a number where I can either give I haven't really in my brain, I like the idea of $500 a kid. And if anybody reached out and said, like, I'm really hurting, I'm like, okay, let's get you some of this money. I don't want any of it. I don't need any of it. Very fortunate. We just raised $4,500 before I left for Australia for a wildfire relief, and my friends just come out of the woodwork to help. And I think that not just doing something to try and make a difference, but also if I were voting for people with the Oilerslive Awards, I would keep me in mind for the Lady Bing.
Wow, and the campaign starts early. Look at that, right? Wow.
I mean, I don't want to say I'm the most valuable, but I wouldn't not nominate me, so, no, but I am totally being serious. But I just, it's probably, I'd like to see this done in the next 3 weeks. I'd like to actually see if I get this telethon. I want to host one for 24 hours. I actually want to host it for the entire 24 hours, kind of like a wake-a-thon, if you will, or some sort of, so that's my plan.
You don't really want wake in the title, but like, I don't know, like, it's a 24-hour wake.
I'm thinking I'm going to nominate Lars for most original laugh. I'm going with that.
Yeah. That's a category. I've got it on lockdown.
That's right.
So the Lady Bing campaign has already started. I love it. Yeah. I need to figure out, like I imagine the NHL will have some type of problem with me using their trophy names, so I'm going to have to maybe rename the trophies. But I put a lot of work into kind of
miscongeniality.
Yeah, miscongeniality. Yeah, I got to thinking about this because there's really are, like, I had Jackie B on the other day. We had her on Tuesday, and she's a really great guest. And of course, she's been doing this, for forever, right? Like, I was still in my podcast diapers when she was podcasting, right? And for those of you that know, podcast diapers are quite comfortable, and they're an absolute must when you're sitting behind a microphone for 3 hours. I'm only kidding.
Yeah. Well, no, wait. You know what's cheaper, actually, instead of diapers? You just take a Flames jersey and you just tie it around your waist.
Tie it around
your waist.
Oh man,
Lady Lars trophy.
The Lady Lars. That's what Bob the goalie says. We'll call it the Lady Lars. So you're not. I imagine you're not following along on Periscope, Lars, but if you were, I just announced, and for those that are listening on Facebook, Twitch, or wherever you're listening, YouTube, I guess too. We've got some listeners on there. I've got at 10:30. Our special guest is Mr. Jack Michaels.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Tell him that I will donate $50 to his charity of choice if he follows me on Twitter.
Right. Well, he hasn't even followed me on Twitter, and he's already been on the show once. I have not got to the point yet of asking people for follows, but I should ask him for a follow too. Maybe you know what?
Yeah,
like,
that's great.
How much? I'm going to ask him. I'm just going to say, hey, Jack, like, how much is a follow? How much is a follow?
Yeah,
and what charity?
I'll start it at $50. Yeah.
Yeah.
Real.
Okay, so Lars has got $50 for a follow for Jack's charity of choice, and I'll pick. I'll probably outbid you, Lars, but you're gonna have to tune in to Periscope because we might have a little bit of a bidding war.
I've actually never heard the show.
Damn it.
No, I'm just kidding. I listen to it all the time.
Yeah. Probably.
I do listen to it.
Well, do you even know?
I haven't listened to it since I saw you cheering for Reader.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's when it was all over. It was all over.
I do listen to it.
Oh man, like the guys beside me at the like they knew I was chirping them when Lucic scored, and I was cheering. Right, like it was obviously not a real cheer, but the Flames fans beside me were almost mad at me. Like they were mad that I was cheering. Right. Like
however you want to try and spin it, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I mean it was. I was going out of my way to just be like every time Lucic got the puck, I'd be Luch, and it was preseason, so it really didn't matter a whole lot. But hey, I mean, if only Reeder had scored last year, we probably
would have made the playoffs.
We
yeah.
would have made the playoffs. We probably would have had a cup a year early, and instead Reeder screwed us over, and that's where it's at.
That was my favorite.
Yeah, that'll always be one of the absolute best lines from the president of the Oilers. At the I was actually scheduled to be at that event where he said that, and I couldn't make it, which is too bad because I would have loved to say that I was there. There's so many moments. Did you get to many games this year, by the way?
I've been to one. No, I went to two.
Well, you went to Vegas.
And then I was,
yeah.
3 if you include that one. Oh, and then there's a radio DJ here in Edmonton who I've done a bunch of work with, and for Christmas he actually got me tickets to the Thrashers game where they scored the lacrosse goal.
Oh yeah. That was the Predators.
Yeah.
Predators.
Yeah.
Or
Thrashers, Predators. Yeah, Nashville.
Yeah.
You had me wondering, what the hell are you smoking there, Lars?
yeah. They're coming back. There's a comeback.
I was thinking Nashville Thrashers. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I was right behind that. I got to see that. I got to see that up close and personal.
Nice. Yeah, no, you know what? That was a good. Was a good goal. And then he tried the behind the. He was trying to get fancy all game. That was. Why am I going blank on his name, Mike? Do you know it? Not. Shit. Who?
Yanni Nienema.
No, yeah, it was Yanni Nienema in a Thrashers jersey. What's strange is that the Thrashers have now come up on 2 back-to-back podcasts. A defunct, well, I guess they're not defunct. They moved, but an old franchise that isn't around anymore, and now they've come up twice. I was at a Thrashers game years ago where one of the Oilers minor league, like he was a typical minor league player, but he was up for a couple games. His name was Bishai, and he ended up in the Thrashers bench, fighting from the Thrashers bench. It was outstanding. Victor Arvidsson, that's who scored the lacrosse-style goal, if I'm not mistaken. And then he tried something similar that game. Bob the goalie says it was Forsberg. Was it Forsberg or Arvidsson?
Arvidsson, yeah.
I think it was Arvidsson.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't think it was Forsberg.
I don't think so either. So Bob, you're wrong, and but Lars loses one vote. One vote for Lady Bing. Lars, you now. That's one less vote for you. Bob is not likely voting in your favor. So
well, I'm such a fan of his. I've been following him since he first got on social media. I'm such a big fan. So, I mean, he's a gentleman, but if he doesn't want to vote for another gentleman, I understand.
I get it. It really is starting.
It's on, yeah.
It is on. We we're gonna have. I think we'll have some fun, right? Like I hope some people start actually campaigning for certain things. The gentlemanly, or I left out the word gentlemanly, so because obviously there's a lot of great women on Oilers Twitter. What did I say? Lady Bing. Oilers Twitter Best Sportsmanship Award awarded to the Oilers Twitter user that has been the most respectful and courteous to other Twitter users. Of course, here's a good one. The Maurice Richard Trophy, which would be most goals, right? Is the Oilers Twitter the user with the most viral tweets.
Excellent.
Yeah. So, I figure that's kind of like scoring as far as
Rob Tchaikovsky.
Yeah, well, it could be. I've got a media award in there as well, and some other things, but it should be fun. Yeah, I mean, I basically what I did was I thought about what I provide to the Oilers community and thought, how could I spread the love? And I thought I could win every one of these awards, but instead I will give to everybody else instead. And
well, that's very gentlemanly of you.
I
Very
know,
sportsmanlike of you.
I know. Like as I always like to say, if I had one fault, it's that I give too much. It's my biggest fault. Yeah. So you're at the Predators game. You're at the what's it like being at a Vegas game?
It is the first two I went to. So in previous years, the decibels were unnecessarily loud. There was no need for them to have the music turned up that loud. And I'm not even saying that as a the music was too loud. Yep. No, it actually was deafening. So I learned from that to just bring earplugs. This last time wasn't as bad, but it was so loud. I'm like, you're not improving. And I love it when people get excited about things, about life. I don't care if it's insert whatever it is, Big Brother or, hockey or WWE, whatever you're a fan of. I'm glad that you cheer for that fanatically. It's interesting to watch the fans in Vegas who have an elementary understanding of hockey, because as they start to break out of their own zone, you see all these Vegas fans, like the puck isn't even out across their own blue line yet, and the fans are already like almost on their feet, like, yeah, we can't believe it, we're moving the puck up the ice. And I'm like, you guys have no idea when to cheer. Like, it's so fun in that they're not quite hockey savvy yet. It's like I don't follow the game of rugby. Our friend Rob Gagne played a lot of rugby, and occasionally I'd go out and watch his games, but I wouldn't know what was going on. And so I'd be like, yay, I think something good's happening. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, I don't know the game of rugby. And so that's almost how it feels when you're at a Vegas game, is that the fans are super excited, but they don't quite understand nuance yet. And so they're like, yippee, we're past the red line. And I'm like, I don't know if that's the time to cheer yet, but I'm not going to make, I'm not going to take away their excitement. I want to be like, good for you guys. Look you're so cute. You're almost real hockey fan.
I was the very first. I've been to San Jose for a couple of playoff games, not just the Oilers game, but they were playing the Blues one time, and I happened to be in San Jose, and so I got tickets for it. It was I don't know, conference finals maybe, or quarterfinal or semifinals. Anyway, I sit down, and there's a guy and his girlfriend sit in front of me. And the whole time she's on, I don't know, Snapchat or something, the whole game she doesn't see. And this guy is like as stoic as anybody I've ever seen. I don't know why they bought tickets. But the guys behind me, now this got into, I actually posted it on Twitter and had a little bit of a, like some back and forth on it with some people. And maybe we should ask Brett Luchansky, because it might be in the rule book. But these guys behind me were annoying the hell out of me. And at the time, I thought, well, they're brand new hockey fans, right? Like they're from San Jose. Maybe they haven't even, maybe it's their first hockey game. But every time the puck went over the blue line, that's offsides. That's offsides, right? And I just about got up, turned around, and said, "It's offside. It's not plural," right? And I was getting so annoyed. It was really ruining my enjoyment of the game. And but I know what you're talking about. Like, it wasn't just the offsides. That's offsides. But it was every time like San Jose shot the puck anywhere near the net. It was the whole crowd goes, "Ooh," right? And it's driving me nuts. Like, I'm like, that's not, it's not even close. But anyway, so offsides is actually a thing, but there is a right way and a wrong way to use it. And now this goes back a few years, so I don't remember what it is. But Dirsa, remember to ask Luchansky when we got him back on Rip the Ref on Monday, because you know what, like that it drove me nuts. To me, it's not plural. I don't know.
Well, and not only that, the vernacular of it. So I was watching a game when I was in the U.S., and I was watching So it was. I recall it being on NBC. So the announcers are hockey announcers.
Yeah.
And so there was offsetting penalties, and they're like, okay, so the guys were at the penalty box. We're back to 6-on-6. And I'm like, you're hockey announcers. Like, to hear these hockey announcers call it 6-on-6, I'm like, well, technically, okay, but nobody in the history of hockey announcing has ever been like, and we're back to 6-on-6. And I'm like, okay, with that many people on the ice, it's probably going to be offsides. It's like listening to a child try and follow a game. Like when I was 5 years old, I would always sit down with my dad and watch hockey and go, what color team are we cheering for?
That's racist.
That's right. Yeah.
Do you guys remember, like in 2006 when we were in the playoff run? I don't think Twitter existed then, and Oilers had like a chat thing on their website, and I was on there one time and we against Carolina, and I know it brings back bad memories, but the funniest part about that whole series was this guy. I said, "Well, you guys in Carolina, you probably don't know a lot about hockey," and he's like, he was kidding, but he's like, yeah, well, a lot of the people down here, they think offsides is when my NASCAR hits the wall and the sides comes off.
Oh. So you guys will love this. I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to look it up because I don't remember what it was, offsides or offside. I remember there was an actual legitimate case for using the term offsides. If you search it on Google, the first words that come up in quotes are "idiots call offsides." So that's it's from a Reddit thread, but clearly I'm not the only one that feels quite strongly about the singular use of offside.
Yeah, no, you're not.
Yeah, but 6-on-6. Oh, Jacqueline says, "Which one is our team, Dad?" My daughter still asks me that. She still asks me what team we're cheering for. She was born here, my youngest, and but she's a staunch Oilers fan, which is good. So I think that is important to. Some people don't believe that it's that important. I, on the other hand, think that. Like if she, at all wants me to be at her wedding, then she better get it straight.
You see some of those polls on Twitter where people are like, could you date somebody that was a fan of the Flames or the Leafs or whatever team it is? I just kind of laugh at that. It's like, I'm glad Kim likes the Oilers now. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. Like, should we all have the Stepford wives and they have to like everything that we like? And I don't know.
Was your daughter confused when she saw you cheering for the Flames?
Jeez. Wow.
This joke will not end, will it, Lars?
I do. I want to say that, for your very last show on the Oilers Live channel, it has been pretty amusing. It has been a lot of fun having you on.
Might as well get some more in, Lars.
That's right. Oh, man. Jeez. Hey, I was thinking back, and, I'm glad we're keeping things light and lighthearted. You said your buddy is the producer of Big Brother Canada?
Yeah, it's fun, yeah.
Yeah, so it was here as well, right? Where the people in the house didn't know the big crisis was going on? Is that?
As far as I don't watch the show.
Yeah, I don't. I've not.
I was using that as an example of people who are fans of stuff. But yes, I believe there was an episode where they had let them know, like, hey, there's this thing going on in the real world. And then I think a couple of they got messages from their families and got to talk to them a little bit, but they weren't aware of it because they're not aware of anything that's going on outside of the house. So that's your information is accurate. That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. So I was more curious. I think if you had talked to him and if he kind of gave you the inside scoop. I mean, to me that would be like the craziest thing. I remember, and I don't know, what's the name of that channel on? Was it Spike TV? Is that like the men's
Yep.
channel or whatever? Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a reality show where there was only one guy that wasn't in on it, and the rest of them were actors. Do you remember that? It was like You Don't Know Joe or something like that, or Joe.
No, I don't.
Oh man! So that's the only, like, other than the very first Survivor, that's the only other time I've watched a reality show. In essence, the guy, and his name I think was Joe. He had no idea that the show wasn't real, right? Yeah, it was called the Joe Schmo Show. So you have to look it up. They tried it again a second time, and the guy caught on. But this guy basically, he was kind of like on The Office there, where not Andy, but Michael Scott, the guy that always sucks up to Michael Scott. Anyway, he's always trying to pick teams and stuff like that, like vote people off the island sort of deal. So this guy, the Joe Schmo guy, was right into it, and so the rest of everybody else that was in on it, they were all actors, right? And it was hilarious. And but only the first one. I think the second and third one became. You kind of, though, near the end, you kind of felt bad for the guy, but it still made for good TV, and I'm sure he got paid reasonably well, or maybe not at all. I don't know if the guys on the Boris get paid at all, but
My phone died.
no, you're still here. Can't hear me? Did we lose Lars? We lose you?
Did I lose you guys? Check
no,
one.
Still
check
there,
one.
Lars.
Check one. We're still here. We're still here. Can you hear us? Oh man. You know what? We probably did lose him.
I haven't seen him dropped yet on here.
No, he's still on the. That's all right. Yeah. Larsy. All right.
Check 1, 2.
Yeah, well, we can hear you going. Check 1,
There
2.
you are, buddy.
Here, I will. You know what? I'll call him back in. We've got to. We've probably got to. This is always. He's like. Most people say hello, but Lars spends his life in front of a microphone, so he's always like, check one, check one. I will. I'll drop him and then I'll give him a call back. Lars, we're gonna get you back in the call. I think that it's that's hilarious. Yeah, because I know, if I didn't know that, I'd be like, is this thing on? Can you guys hear me? But long-time microphone user, and the first thing that comes to mind is...
Hello again.
Hey.
Back.
Hey now.
I was like, what's going on?
Well, we could hear you, and I was just saying, like, you're it's like a guy spent his life in front of a microphone when he doesn't say hello, can you hear me, but he goes check one, check 1 2. Like most people they're like, hello, can you hear me? No, not you. Spend your life in front of a microphone. It's like check one, this thing on. You're hitting the phone microphone. What the hell? Anybody? Anyone out there? We're here, man. We're here. What's your biggest, on that note, what's your biggest fear when you get up there? Is it that the microphone doesn't work? Have you ever had that where you get up there? No?
There. When it comes to doing comedy,
yeah,
it's like any other job, and very much like a sport, in that if you've done it so I've been doing comedy for 17 years. Yeah. I've been doing it more than 400 shows a year for 16 years. I've done about 50, by estimation, I don't have an exact count, but by estimation, I've done about 5,500 shows. So one of the things that's very important is that you're prepared. And not just prepared in that you know what you're going to do as far as material, because that'll change show to show. You've seen enough of my shows to know that sometimes they go way off script. It's your job as the comedian to show up before the room gets opened and do a sound check. So you show up and you make sure the microphone works. You check the lighting. You set up the tables in a way that works best for the room. You've done everything you can to remove any of the variables that might make it difficult for you to succeed, as long as you have good jokes. Having good jokes, once you've got good jokes, now you have to make sure it's like double checking your equipment's there, or getting out on the ice and finding out how the boards bounce, or seeing how high the glass is, or like all of the little things that you can do. So there's a great story that I've always liked about Larry Bird, where he would go and spend hours and hours and hours figuring out where the ball bounced less on a court. So it wouldn't bounce exactly the same everywhere.
Yeah.
So what he would do was he would go figure out where it was a little bit of a dead spot. And he would know, as a player dribbled over that spot, that the ball would be returning slower because it was a dead spot on the court, and he would steal the ball in that moment. So he led the league in steals forever. It was the preparation that allowed him to be as good as he was. The talent was there, but how hard are you willing to work? And so I just did a show in Boyle, Alberta. There was a big fundraiser for a playground, and I was there 2 hours before showtime. You discuss with them how to set up the room, and then you check lighting, and you check sound, and you rearrange the room. And their neat little trick, a lot of people don't want to sit near the front. And if they're not familiar with, it's a Boyle Community Hall or whatever it was. So what you do is you put reserved signs on the back tables. So as people come in, they see the back tables are reserved. Well, they have no choice but to sit up towards the front. And so then what you do is, as the room fills up, you just slowly pluck off the reserved signs. So you've subconsciously moved people exactly where you wanted them. And so I set up the room as best I can. So once all of that's done, then what? I mean, somebody's going to heckle. Well, I've done 5,000 shows. Or you're not. I'm going to make you look ridiculous if you shout something out during the show. Like, I'm going to make you look bad. And so actually, it's fun to have Mike on here because he saw a not ideal setup in Grand Prairie. So we did, the owners are great, and the people were good, and the crowd was good, but the bar isn't conducive to a comedy show. So it's called Tractor Jack's, and it's a long room with pillars in the way. And so we got there super early, and I think Mike was even in the room in Grand Prairie Forest when we moved all of the tables in the entire bar. So we set up the bar. We set up the bar so that it would work as best as possible for a comedy show. And so, no, I mean, I wasn't nervous my first time. I wasn't nervous for any of my TV tapings. I wasn't nervous touring with Joan Rivers. I wasn't nervous. There's not a thought. I make sure my zipper's done up, and then I check my face and my teeth before so I'll go into the bathroom and I'll make sure I have nothing on my face and I don't have anything in my teeth. I'll walk up and then it's just, I've already prepared as much as I can for the room to be successful. And then after that, well, then you just need good jokes. And, hopefully after 17 years of doing comedy, you have some material that works.
You got one or two.
And so, yeah. And then, the club that you come to in Calgary is so much fun because when you play the Laugh Shop in Calgary, it's great lights, it's great sound, it's a comedy savvy audience. It's like they've been running that club for 30 years. So then it's a matter of you just go up there and just crush because you're in an environment that's not Tractor Jack's in Grand Prairie. Nothing wrong with that room. It's just not set up as well as a professional comedy club is. And so, you make it work for you, and that's how you become good at it. But, it's funny. I have a pair of Adidas shoes that would only be worn on stage.
A pair?
And, well, there's show shoes. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
But there's show shoes, and then there's walking around shoes. And so as I'm changing into my show shoes before I walk on stage, somebody looked at me and goes, "You have shoes for like that you just wear inside or that you just wear on stage?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm a professional." Like, and not to compare it to anybody who's a journeyman Oiler. Let's I don't know. Let's go with Reeder. Maybe Reeder went an entire year without scoring, but he still did his equipment up the way that everybody else did. It's like if he got his game stick and somebody goes, "You have a stick just for games?" Like, yes, I'm a professional hockey player. Like, this is how I make my living. This is my job. And so I take great pride in the preparation. I take great pride in my appearance, and I consider myself the luckiest person in the world that I get to do what I love for a living. I can't believe it. And when I see what you've done, as I come to your house to do your podcast and see all the things you've done, whether it's, any kind of training or Mike, you and I have known each other so long that I've seen you live passionately for more than 20 years. And it's people like you and Jeff and Derek and all of our friends who are professionals, Ben Thomas and all of these great, we have a wonderful circle of friends who have been so supportive of my comedy career. And I do draw inspiration from people like you who live passionately every day. Makes me happy. I mean, nothing makes me happier, if I'm being honest.
Nothing.
Nothing.
No, I know what you.
That's my
I know
favorite
what
thing
you.
in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is fun to watch, right? And when that's to take it back to what is the original reason for the podcast. Watching hockey, watching those players, the ones that have passion, right? Like there's nothing worse than watching a professional hockey player that you think doesn't want to be there, right?
Especially one that's
McGillney.
really talented.
Yeah.
I saw McGillney. That was one of my biggest frustrations, because when he would turn it on, there was hardly anybody more talented than McGillney. And then when he would just coast around and look bored, I'm like, you're the most talented person on the ice. Why aren't you skating every shift? So that's, you're right. It is so frustrating to see wasted talent.
Jacqueline asks if you just earned my vote. He's still, wait, Lars is off the air in about 10 minutes, and he's going to be like, I wonder if I sold him on that.
Well, I mean, honestly, everybody wants to be the MVP.
That's right. Yeah,
any award it's sometimes it's an honor just to be nominated. I mean, I'm not saying that I connected the most Twitter fans of the past, the Oilers Twitter fans of the past 2 years. But I'm in the running. I mean, certainly if I was...
You definitely are in the running.
And I mean, I think really, if I'm, honestly though, it's my humility that would make me want to vote for me.
That's right. That's
well,
right.
If you can sway your own vote, maybe you can sway somebody else's.
Oh, man.
Well, I mean, I did comp Mike Dirsa in Grand Prairie, and I bought him a beer. So, if I was him, I would vote with my wallet. I mean, that was at least $18.
When you were moving those tables, I'm just curious, was Dirsa's name etched on the bottom of every one of those, or how was that?
He was in a booth. He had a comfy booth.
Oh.
That was a tough room to work. I gotta give Lars some credit, because he's slammed over on the far right hand side, so he's talking to about 1/5 of the surface area of the bar.
Oh,
yeah.
Man.
and did it joyfully, So really, when I think about it, as far as sportsmanship, I play with whatever hand I'm dealt. I don't complain. It's really, it's what's brought me to the. I'm just working on my acceptance speech.
Yeah.
If I remember right, you had your Aussie buddy there with you too, didn't you?
Two Aussies, yeah.
Oh yeah, I met them. I think might have been the same tour that you were on.
You did?
Yeah. Or no, you know what? I did not. I don't know if I met them, but you had them on. That was during the Fringe, right? Like, or they're around. I didn't meet them, but what did happen is you had them on Comic Genius with you, and I was listening. In fact, I think somehow I was communicating with you guys, probably through some type of ESP or something like that. Because we're in tune with each other, Lars. I really feel that way. And so I remember, in fact, I think they follow me on Twitter. now. But I didn't actually meet them, but I got a chance to hear about them. It seemed like good guys. In fact, that was one of my favorite Comic Genius episodes, if I recall. There was you guys talked about quite a bit that time. And when are you back on there next?
I was supposed to do it last night, but I was
You were
having a
busy?
little trouble with some. No, I wasn't actually. We pre-recorded.
I know
we
you
had
weren't.
A comedian in Toronto who we pre-recorded. So, yeah, that's
Yeah.
funny. My 4 months of work just got canceled. I had to come home from Australia early, and Mike is like, "Haha, I know you're not busy. You don't have any work." I'm not saying you're the least sportsmanlike, but
I'm definitely up there. Yeah. Oh, wow.
But I'm saying if you're
Eats
if you're
Oilers
picking between
Twitter
the
and
three of
penalty
us,
minutes.
Yeah.
yeah. The Tiger Williams Award.
That's right, the Tiger Williams. I would put an award like that out there, but holy shit, there are some toxic people on Twitter, right? Like,
and
who would you pick?
If you were to go through all of my, especially where I'm trying to connect Oilers fans on Twitter around the world, I always say be nice. And I'm not saying this as a campaign. This is an actual unrelated thought. This is an unrelated thought.
Yeah.
It's very important to me that, and I've always loved this quote. It's one of my favorite quotes. It is, it was a football coach who said it, and it was, when the one great scorer comes to write against your name, he will mark not that you won or lost, but how you played. And so that's why it's so important to me to say every time I send out one of those, I'm like, let's just be nice to each other. Like, don't get mad about this. It is, like Dirsa says, just entertainment. And it's wonderful entertainment. It's my favorite entertainment. It is my favorite entertainment, but it is still just entertainment. And so that's why I say, like, let's connect each other. But you're right, as far as the toxicity that can seep in, and a lot of times I reacted negatively on Facebook. There's this woman who said, "Oh, yeah, I think Trump's doing a good job," and I was like, "Well, measurably, he has not." And then she's like, "Well, you're ugly," and I'm like, I hope you can afford shampoo, whatever job you get next. Your hair is dreadful. I go, and I never stoop to like name calling. I'm like, I'm 40 years old. Like, what are we, we're in, so I'm like, I'm not gonna. So I sent her a message that said, "Look, I reacted poorly to that. I shouldn't have name called." I'm like, I'm better than that. And so when it gets to that point, just block the person. There's no need, because if somebody is in a dark place in their own life and they want to lash out like that and attack, don't even engage. Don't even engage. There's no point. Be nice. And something like Oilers Live, it comes from such a great place. Let's connect fans. Let's promote people we like. Let's have awards for the people we love. And those kinds of things make the world a better place. That kind of joy makes the world a better place. And so I love it. I love it. I love what you do. And and we've met so many people from the Oilers Twitterverse that we look at them and go, these are our friends now. These are real life friends. And you don't make a lot of new friends when you get to, being in your 40s. There's not a lot of, people who they're very busy with their own lives and their families, and that's understandable, but it's nice that we can all interact, and positively. That's what I like best about it, personally.
Yeah, I'm 100% on board with you, and in fact, that's why we moved to be doing the live stream a few times a week, was just to kind of have something fun and positive. And Leslie Bryant just says it's how you show up in the world, and she's right, 100%. In fact, I think that's when I was thinking about doing these awards, and we're going to have some fun. By the way, we've been fact-checked. It was Forsberg. Bob the goalie actually fact-checked us, too.
That guy's such a gentleman.
Bob.
And he's always right. I sure like that guy.
I know. Bob is hell of a guy. Anyway, you know what? It's been really great. I think this is probably a good time, to let you go for the night, and and get ourselves prepared for Mr. Jack Michaels, who I'm sure has been listening the whole time, and he'll give us a play-by-play of the whole conversation.
Hey, you got to ask him about. I'll let you go. Certainly.
Yeah.
You got to ask him about if he's going to do some play-by-play. Have you seen that British announcer who's doing the play-by-plays of like everyday stuff?
No. Is it on
I'll
YouTube?
tag you in the tweet. I'll find.
Okay.
So yeah, so you just go British announcer announces real life or something, and so there's a soccer announcer, and he's announcing like people walking across the street, and he's announcing. So like, I wonder if Jack Michaels would do something like that. I would love to hear that.
I will put in the request from Lars to have him announce real life. He is. We are blessed with Jack Michaels as a play-by-play. I will often go back to plays that I know are super exciting, and just listen to his call on it. I had a hockey game one night, and usually I'll always PVR if I got to go to a game. I'll put the PVR on, and I won't turn the radio on. But I got into the car, and Jack Michaels was calling the game, and there was about 2-3 minutes left in the game, and he was so into it and so passionate, I couldn't turn it off. Like I wasn't even like yeah. I'm like a visual guy. I don't want to listen, right? But I could not turn the radio off. Like, and I ruined the outcome of the game. But I tweeted out after, like, that was awesome. Like he gets
Agreed.
So into it that I don't even know. In fact, one of the things I wanted to ask him today is how he comes up with that. You talking about passion today, like he's got passion in his voice and excitement, and I just think you come by that. I don't know. Do you come by that naturally? Maybe you do. Maybe it's a learned thing, but he obviously loves what he does.
Yeah, and fully agree. And I will let you go right after this. So he's not just passionately announcing it; he's painting a vivid picture.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he's going, we're coming down the left boards, he's in this corner, like the right side of this. He's actually, if you're a fan of hockey and you know the game and you know the spots on the ice he's talking about, he paints a vivid image. So when I think of a color man, he's filling in the color of a hockey game. And so I've only a couple of times in my life, but it's happened where I was able to watch an Oilers game, but I was in the U.S., so I didn't have a Canadian feed, so the NBC announcers would have been on.
Yep.
And I have turned off their announcing and listen to him while I'm watching the game in the U.S.
Yeah, and that's I think I know there's a lot of people that have like the they'll sync up his call with the live feed and just mute the TV and listen to him. Like he gets right into it, and it's so worth it, right? Like it just is a whole different game when Jack's calling, and it was good to finally see him get some credit. I know what are the Sid and what are those guys on TSN?
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Anyway, they gave him a shout out today.
The other guy.
Sit on the other guy. Oh man.
Dan?
Yeah, not Dan. Come on, Mike, help us out here. Sid, Tim and
Dan
Sid.
and
Sid. Yeah, Tim and Sid. Yeah, they gave him a shout out today. I know who Jack Michaels is, but I really could care less. Tim and Sid got their own audience. They don't need me. They're doing a good job.
Yeah, perfect. All right, gentlemen. Well, have a good chat with him, and tell him the bidding starts at $50.
All right.
And if he's interested in doing that, or he could just say $50 to the charity per follow.
There you go. We'll give him the option. All right. Well, you have a great night, and hope you're back online sooner than later. And love to see this Okanagan Comedy Festival. I think it's worth going out to the Okanagan in the summer. So it'd be nice if we're able to do that this year for sure.
Take care, Lars. I hope to see you soon.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
All
Thanks,
right.
Lars. Talk to you soon. Bye. So that was Mr. Lars Kalju joining. As Lars said, he and I actually we met first year university, and I've known him ever since. A hell of a good guy, and always get a chance when he's in town. We always make a point of going out to see him. And I knew, Mike, that you had gone out to watch his show. I didn't realize it was out in Grand Prairie. I didn't. Tough crowd, you said.
I think I've watched him and his craft 3 times. Once in Edmonton, once here at home, and I believe I went to see him once in Calgary as well.
Yeah. One of the great things, is you can go and of course you'll hear some of the same jokes, but he's got, he's been at it for a long time, that you'll hear something new every time, and certainly if you get a chance, for those that are listening, you get a chance to go out and see Lars, please do, and also watch for this. I think Wakeathon, by the way, Lars, is a terrible name, but telethon, 24-hour telethon, all day telethon, whatever it is. That sounds like a good cause and something we could get behind for sure. Our next guest is, as we were just talking about, is Oilers play-by-play guy for 630 Ched. And I kept it secret for a little while. I'm going to see if he's ready to join. What's your favorite call, your favorite Jack Michaels call?
Oh, man. This might seem like a bit of a shot, but it really isn't. He can make a shot that goes like 5 feet wide sound like it's, just missed by an inch, and it sucks you in. I don't know, when he's on, there's something I want to say to him, because I think he does a great job. So.
Yeah, he, as I said, I almost never will listen to the radio, and I happen to have it on that night, and I wish I remembered the game, but I did a shout out to him after. So I'm just going to dial him in here. Give me a second. We're going to have Mr. Jack Michaels on here right away. I had him once on the show, I want to say about, maybe it was 2 years ago now, or 2 years ago. And the unfortunate is the audio wasn't great. Hey, Jack, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Jack, it's Michael here from Oilerslive, of course, and we got Mike Dirsa. He's, if I don't know how much on Twitter, but he does the Oilers mega thread. Did you ever tag Jack in on that, Mike?
I haven't, but
I know
I've given him some compliments.
Yeah, good. Well, you know what? Thanks for taking some time with us today. I know, as you know, us Oilers fans are all dying for some semblance of hockey or anything, and we started this live stream, Jack, kind of right when everybody was started to self-isolate. As you know, I had you on once before on a recorded podcast, but we started the live stream as just a way for everybody to get their mind off of everything. And I had Robert Clark on, was one of the first guests, and he sang the national anthem for us on the air, which was unbelievable and just kind of brought chills to us. But to hear your voice, this is fantastic, and thanks for joining.
Oh, absolutely. Appreciate you having me on, and trust me, I'd like to be doing something else right now. No offense to your show, but I'd like to be in the stretch of the the playoff drive, and I'm holding out hope that we get some good news for June or July or whatever it is. But on the other hand, I think we all realize that there's more important things to take care of first.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, but you know what? I mean, while we're doing this, I guess we do some light things and some fun-hearted things. And one thing I've found, and maybe you could tell me, I have found that I'm actually more connected with people than I have ever been. during this time. Do you find the same, or is it a little bit different for you?
Oh, I mean, for me, it's a little bit different because even though I may not, necessarily know exactly who's listening, excuse me, on a particular given night, it is one of the ways I connect with the community. I mean, when I broadcast a game, I assume they're taking, anywhere from 15 minutes to 3 hours out of their night to listen to the hockey game. And I feel like I owe it to convey to them not only what's happening in, the hockey game that we're doing that night, but what's happening in and around the team the day before, the day after, the general atmosphere, surrounding the team, surrounding my life, surrounding people who cover the team. I try to include everyone in what's going on. And that I think, it helps me feel like I'm, painting the picture in more ways than one in terms of just, dumping the puck into the corner and centering pass and stuff like that. I try to, at least for those minutes that they listen, I try to make them feel like they're part of something. They're part of the overall season. They're part of the overall flow of what's going on in the National Hockey League and what's going around the hockey team. So when I'm not conveying that, I do feel disconnected. I don't feel the same connectivity to that part of my life. And it is a big part of my life. I mean, I suppose I'm, seeing more of my kids, but it doesn't feel natural just because the way my relationship with my family has always worked is they get, a part-time person for 7 months, and then they get a full-time person for 5 months. That's the way it's always worked. So everything feels kind of out of order. And even in this time where theoretically I'd reconnect with a certain, part of my existence, it's just not quite the same because all of us feel like, I'm supposed to be doing something else. And that's, I'm not saying I'm not trying to take advantage of those opportunities, but I think for everyone, it feels weird. And for me, especially so, because I've always had the structure of a hockey season upon which I basically structure my whole life around it. I have a certain routine. And, that, of course, has been turned upside down. It doesn't make me unique. Everyone's routine is upside down. But for me in particular, the way my life is constructed around certain dates, opening a training camp and the NHL Combine and the draft and the playoffs and all that kind of thing, it's just odd to be in this strange section of the calendar, not doing what I'm typically used to doing.
Yeah, I guess, and you've been at it, of course, for a number of years. So, this would be, it would be your habit, right, to go up and I'm sure there's a lot of preparation goes into every game as well, and all of those things that happen. It's funny, you talk like that because I had Lars Kalju on just before you, and I don't know if you know Lars, but he's reasonably well-known comedian in Edmonton, and I've known Lars for a number of years. But we were talking about passion and people having passion, and then we got to talking, a little bit about you, and Mike and I and everybody kind of agrees. What we love about listening to you is the passion that comes out in your voice when you're calling a game, and I've tweeted out to you, a few times, just thanks for the call. How does that come to you? Is it something you've learned, or is it something that's just come naturally that you just love the game that much and what you do? Or is it maybe a bit of both?
I don't think you can really learn it. I think that's really part of your personality. I think if you watch me coach my son's baseball team, if you watch me do anything really that I care about, watch my daughter play soccer from the stands. You're just that way or you're not. I don't necessarily knock a guy. Sometimes I'll hear, "Oh, your call was so much better than this because he called it straight." Well, it's maybe sometimes not in that guy's personality. I don't think in this business you can fake it or you can learn it. I think I'm fortunate. I think hockey is a passionate game, and I think I'm fortunate that I'm naturally a passionate guy in that particular circumstance. I think there's a lot of times, and you talk to my kids maybe when they bring home a subpar mark or they're mean to their mother, they tell you they wish I wasn't so passionate. There's some times where that quote unquote passion doesn't serve me as well as I'd like it to, but that's the way I am. That's the one thing I think, my friends, my relatives, that's the one thing they know about me is I'm not beloved by everyone, but I am never someone where you're confused as to where you stand. And I think if you listen to the hockey game, you'll know, not that I necessarily have to say it, but you'll know reading the tea leaves, hey, there's not much going on in this game, or B, this is a hell of a game and I wish I was there to see it. And that I think is, I wouldn't say it's learned, but I do think it's a responsibility of any play-by-play broadcaster, and even TV, you ultimately want to certainly convey the excitement and include everyone in the atmosphere. But at the end of the day, you also would like that person, when they switch off the radio or they resume their activities, to actually kind of think, you know what, I should have gone to that game. And part of my job is to envy me a little bit. If I don't mean to say that to sound egotistical, but I think part of my job, in a strange way, is for people to wish they had my job or to wish that they were at the game, because I think that's what draws people to sports is, wow, I wish I was there. Can you imagine? Can you believe how lucky that guy is? Because I think that's an example of having passion for your work and conveying that over the radio is when people, and I get it all the time, thankfully, and it tells me that I am doing my job. You've got the best gig in the world, and I think that's what makes my job unique a little bit. And the other 120 people that are calling play-by-play for major North American professional sports we feel that it's the best job in the world. And I think to some degree, when you've nailed it, when someone says, wow, you must have had a great time tonight. And that's what I want everyone to feel. I want everyone to feel they had a good time listening. They'd probably have a better time being at the game, and they'd even have a better time if it were them in the booth and not me. And that, in a strange way, is what I see the job primary responsibility to be, is to make people a little envious one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, you are as much a part of the entertainment as the guys on the ice quite often. And I had Robert Clark on here, and to hear him, he lives for singing the anthem before every game, right? And as Oilers fans, we live to hear him sing that anthem before every game, and just how special and how important that part is for us. It occurred to me, though, while you were talking, like for him, he's, I asked him, I said, do you have, somebody in the, in the NHL universe that you think, is an exceptional anthem singer? And he said, well, he doesn't really get a chance to listen to, the other guys out there or women. How about yourself? Is there anybody, that that's currently in the game today calling in another market that, you have a lot of respect for and is a personal favorite for you? Is that something that you have, or anybody you look up to in the league?
I mean, that's actually a pretty significant list. I mean, I think there's great play-by-play guys in sports right now. I mean, I think Joe Buck does a really good job. I think Doc Emmerich does a phenomenal job. In the local deal, I'm a big fan of Pat Foley in Chicago. I think him and Eddie Olchuk are a fantastic team. So in other words, there's a lot of guys who I think are terrific. I really do. And I have a lot of respect for anyone who does it. I mean, Robert Clark, you talk about me wanting to convey that experience. I mean, we try to get Robert's dulcet tones on there whenever we can, because I think he does a phenomenal job. The only guy that I would put anywhere near Robert is the guy in Chicago, Jim Cornelison, and that's a unique time-honored tradition there in Chicago, where you got 22,000 and a standing ovation every time. It's really a captivating atmosphere, and he's the one guy who I think can give Robert a run for his money. So you're absolutely right. I mean, that's another way that we try at our radio network, is to include the audience, and Robert Clark's a big part of that. But as far as my colleagues, I mean, there's a number. I mean, I just named a few guys. But Kevin Harlan, who does some national games for the NBA and the NFL, and was the longtime voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, does a great job. I mean, there's a ton of guys. When I was growing up, Mike Lang in Pittsburgh, who still does the home games for the Penguins, radio play-by-play, that was the guy who got me into it. I mean, he was phenomenal. Dave Johnson, who used to call the horse races for ABC, the Triple Crown races in the 90s. If you want to listen to a great call, dial up the 1989 Preakness Stakes, Sunday Silence and Easy Goer. I could almost recite that call for you. And I remember, I mean, this is me exposing myself as a complete nerd, but yeah, I totally remember that race. I mean, I could go on and on. I mean, there's just so many guys in so many different sports. And I will say this, that the horse racing analogy is one that I use to this day, is because I do feel like a good game is a lot like a horse race. You want to build it from the ground up. You want to mention at various points during the game that you are witnessing one hell of a game, and at the end, you better bring it. And that's why I try to save the best for last. With 2 minutes, 1 goal game, tie game, I try to make sure I'm at my absolute best, because the event has earned that. And when the event and the players that make up that event earn the right to have their game called as it should be. And that's where I think you better be ready for the stretch drive, the final furlong or two in a horse race. That's what the final minute or two of a playoff game, a great regular season game, any worthy event. If the event is worthy of it, you better bring it. And that's why I try to, build it. And that's why sometimes when people, it's funny. The only critique I usually respond to, where I kind of dismiss it, and I kind of say, look, I'm afraid you don't understand the business, is when people, expect that energy in a preseason game, or expect that energy in a 5-1 game. You cannot fool the audience, nor should you. You do need to reserve your very, very best for when the game is at its very, very best. So it's not a business where you can have your foot on the gas pedal for all 105 broadcasts, if you include the preseason games and the prospects games. You've got to pick your spots. I try to maintain a certain level of energy for all the broadcasts, and then pick my spots to really elevate it to achieve an equality with the magnitude of the event itself.
Yeah, I mean, just hearing you talk about that, and it's funny, just before we dialed you in, I was telling Mike, like, I asked him, I said, what's one of your favorite Jack Michaels calls? Because there's, there are a ton of games that you've called that, we can, a lot of fans that listen to you can recollect, and I'm sure you have, like the, whether it's the Triple Crown or some of those calls that you remember, vividly. And I don't remember the actual game, but I gave you a shout out on Twitter, and I was talking about this. Is I'm on my way to hockey one night, and typically I turn the radio off as I get in the car, so I don't hear what the rest of the score is. I'll PVR the rest of the game, and I happen to have you on the air, and there was about 2 or 3 minutes left, and you captivated me. And I listened to the rest of the game, ruining the PVR and the score for myself on the way home. But at the same time, I was into it. And, I'm thankful, Jack, that you're there to call the games. because, it's that kind of moment. Lars said before he went off, it's you create a vivid picture in our minds, that is led with some passion, and it's that stretch drive in that particular game, and I wish I remembered who it was, but I actually waited in the car the final couple minutes before going into the rink just to hear what the outcome was, and I felt like I was right there. The Oilers didn't win the game, but it sure felt like, I was there. I was listening to you. I could hear it in your voice, and an exciting call. In your recollection, is there a call that you've done that you're particularly proud of, that you remember the most?
I don't. This may sound strange, but I don't, because I don't. I don't have any script. I don't have any idea of what I'm going to say, in the latter stages of a given game. I don't even really plan the overtime calls. I've just always called overtime goals that way. So I can't really tell you one that sticks out. I guess what I'm saying is what's rewarding for me is, when I hear people talk like you just did. I mean, that's what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to get to the point where people are going to slightly alter their routines to catch the end of the game. And if I'm doing that in today's day and age with all the things we have to distract us, social media and other things, if there are still people out there that are catching the end of a game on a radio, especially in the regular season where maybe there's not a ton at stake, then maybe I'm doing the job okay. Because I do feel like it's my responsibility if they're gonna go old school and dial me up on their phones, or just listening to the games, period. It takes that what I'm doing. I don't know is going to be necessarily around in 50 years. I hope it is. But it's what I'm doing is something that people have done for 50 or 60 years. They've listened to the games on the radio. They've listened, obviously now most of the people are listening to the games, through an app on their phone, but it's still coming through a radio signal. And I take that responsibility very seriously. I like the fact that I am connected to a profession that's, now going on 1921 KDK in Pittsburgh. I mean, it's 100 years old. I mean, that to me, I'm from Pittsburgh. I know that station. I listened to that station growing up, but that was the home of the Pirates. Lanny Fratteri, who went to the same college I did in upstate New York, called the Pirates for 30 years. And that's one of the reasons I like my job too, is I like the idea of being part of a community for 30, 40 years. I mean, when I was growing up, Bob Prince and Lanny Fratteri did the Pirates for 4 decades. Jack Fleming was the voice of the Steelers for 30 years. I mean, and Mike Lang has been the voice of the Penguins since 1975. He's still doing the home games. It was the same in Los Angeles. Vin Scully and Bob Miller and Chick Hearn of the Lakers. I mean, those guys, you couldn't get a job in LA professional sports for 50 years. I mean, think about that. And that's kind of what I think about when you talk to me about my calls and taking the extra time to maybe catch the last minute of the game. For me, that tells me that I'm kind of honoring the profession in a certain way. And I know it sounds hokey and that sounds a little bit corny, but for me, I don't worry about a given call or, I know a lot of people think that, Oilers Radio Network is kind of a catchphrase, and I've sprinkled some catchphrases in. To be honest with you, I swear on this, that has come about organically. That's more a timing mechanism than anything. The overtime thing is, again, kind of a timing mechanism for me to wrap it up, and that's the Oilers Radio Network. It helps me to get the break because, like so many people who do this, I do have little tics. I tend to rely on certain, functions of timing to help me get through a broadcast and to help at least give myself the impression that I'm doing it correctly. And when you say something like that tells me I'm on the right track in terms of how I call a game. But That's a very long-winded answer of telling you. I don't have a favorite call because I think when you start getting caught up as a broadcaster and, well, I like this call, I like that call, you tend to want to imitate it again or try to make it a, I prefer that it happens completely organically. So I get swept up in these games, and that's when you were talking about my passion. I don't think you can learn it. I don't think you can fake it. I don't think you can come with a rehearsed call. It doesn't go like that. Not for me. It needs to happen organically. I can't go in there with a script. I can't fake it. I don't have that ability. It's why I'd be a lousy actor.
Jack,
Yeah.
my I'm a Northern Alberta kid, and I grew up listening to Rod and Morley. I don't know who Rod's sidekick was before Morley. I can't remember that far back because I was too little. But and back in those days, you'd get about 40 games on TV, 35, something like that, and the rest, if you wanted to know what was going on, you were listening to it on the radio. And most of the time, I was going to hockey games all over Northern Alberta, so I'd be driving to a hockey game on my own, and Rod and Morley would be on. You came in, and it couldn't have been, well, maybe it was an enviable position, but I don't know. Lots of Oiler fans had chip on their shoulders. Well, this guy can't follow up. Rod Phillips. Rod was a Hall of Famer. All of that. Listening to you right off the bat, your fire and your passion, and your style, it was completely different. It was you, and I've loved it ever since. There's times where I drive a 5-ton truck and I'm coming home to Grand Prairie, later in the evening when it's game time, and obviously you don't have a television in the 5-ton work truck, so tune into 630 Ched and listen to that. And I'm just glad you're there to guide me home and take me to games. And we're definitely envious that you get to watch McDavid. That goes without being said. But my kids, Jack, when you say on the Oilers radio network, I don't think there's a kid that doesn't do that about 5 times after you do it.
That's awesome.
It's funny you mentioned that because that's the reason I slipped it into the last part of that conversation is I take some heat for that. A lot of people hate that, and again, I don't do it as a signature. I do it as a way to get me to break, as a way to help me wrap it up. Because as you probably can figure out, and your listeners could probably figure out, I've never met a conversation I haven't liked. So sometimes I need to know when to button it up. But as far as the people that were saying he can't measure up to Rod, they're right. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. He did it for 38 years, and I think one of the reasons I've been whatever success I've had in this market over the last 10 years, I think can be attributed to the fact that I didn't try to be like Rod. There was no way I was going to be Rod. There's no, no matter if I had, 10 times more talent than I do, I still couldn't be Rod. I mean, you could have brought whoever your favorite announcer was. You could have brought in Bob Cole and people wouldn't have been happy. And they have a right to feel that way. I mean, he was their voice for 4 decades. They grew up with that guy. And Rod was I had a chance to work with Rod his last year, my first year. And, he was as good a person as he was a broadcaster. So they have every reason to feel that way. And they have every reason to feel that I don't measure up, and I probably never will. But again, I think one of the reasons I have earned some people's respect, even those that feel I'm a very, poor second to Rod, I think even those people would concede, at least this guy brought his own deal in, and he didn't try to fool us. He didn't try to, pretend he was Rod or try to paint a picture of himself as a born and bred Edmontonian. He didn't try to lie to us. He came in, he said he's a Western Pennsylvania kid who didn't, grow up watching a lot of hockey. And that's all true. I mean, I came to the game late, I watched a little, on CBC London, Ontario, but I really didn't get the hockey bug until, Merritt Lemieux and the Penguins started taking off. And I saw a guy who I'm now lucky enough to work with, Rob Brown, tear up the league in 88, 89. I mean, that was a year that was a tremendous turning point for me in my real interest in hockey. Yes, I rooted for the Oilers because I hated the Flyers and the Bruins. I always did as a Penguin fan. I mean, I don't think they won in Philadelphia for 10 years. You could look that up. They had something like a 10-year losing streak at the Spectrum, and the Bruins used to spank them around too. And that's how I became an Oilers fan, just by anti-Philly, anti-Boston hatred. And so I think that, I guess, being myself has at least, carved my own path and allowed people to consider me, an adjacent proposition to Rod. In other words, the most ardent Rod fans know that I'm not trying to measure up to Rod. They've put me in a separate category. And I think that's benefited me long term, because I think when you're following any guy, but especially a guy like Rod Phillips, who meant so much to this community for 4 decades, you try to pass yourself off as the next Rod or some sort of cheap imitation, and you're guaranteed failure.
You know what, Jack?
And I've never been like that anyway. So I think that's helped me.
Yeah.
You know what, Jack? I think you're both storytellers, and you just tell the story a different way. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Well, I appreciate that. I try to tell the story my own way, and rightly or wrongly, I think that some people appreciate that.
For sure.
Yeah, well, we definitely do, and I know you said 15 minutes. We're well over that, and I just want to thank you for taking the time with us tonight, Jack. It's as always, and taking the time with us when we're listening to the game. I hope that.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I try to connect. I know I hear from you guys on Twitter. I try to answer the messages when I can. Sometimes they're fast and furious, but I appreciate being in a market where shows like this exist. And I gave you a 15-minute window because I know myself that if I gave you a 30-minute window, we'd be on until 2 a.m. And I imagine you guys have some better things to do.
I do have one request. So Lars said, and so I have to honor his request. He said he would provide $50 to the charity of your choice for a follow, and
For
so
what?
for a follow on Twitter, and so I said,
Shameless.
well, let's get this as an auction item here, and I think that if you give him a follow, you make sure that he donates.
Well, tell him Little Warriors, and then I'm gonna ask you to send me his handle, and I'll make sure to make it a follow.
All right. Thanks so much,
All
Jack,
right.
and you have a great night, and hope you and the family stay happy and healthy, and hope we hear you soon.
You're a sweet guy, Jack.
Right
We
back
love you.
at you guys. Thanks again for having me on.
Yeah, thanks, Jack.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers. So that was the Jack Michaels, and I want to say it's great to hear his voice at this time. I mean, we just there's not enough Jack Michaels right now. I'll tell you that much. We did get dropped by Twitter and Periscope, so we're still live on Oilers live channel on Facebook and also YouTube. But I think it's, Mike, it's just about that time of the night.
I think Periscope actually got us back, but
are we back? All right.
yeah. You know what? He kind of sounds like a player. He sounds to me. He sounds like a player right now that's been punched in the stomach and has the wind knocked out of him. Like he's ready to go on that stretch drive and just can't. That's kind of what I got from him. Hey, did you feel that?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, this is his, we were talking about passion earlier, and there's no doubt that this is his passion.
That's the passion right there.
And, it's fantastic. He's, this is the second time he's given me, a half hour to chat, and he is, he's just an outstanding gentleman, an outstanding guy, and I can't say it enough. We are super lucky to have him as our broadcast. And you know what else I loved is, the way he talks about Rod Phillips. And I remember that, last time that I had him on for the recorded session, I had a couple minutes to talk to him sort of offline, which, you know, is good. You know, sometimes you get different stories offline than you do online, but he's that kind of guy on or off. I love the way he talks about how that passion sometimes, depending on what side you're on, might not be the best thing. That's good. He's definitely a conversationalist. I get it now why he said, yeah, I'll give you 15 and yeah. So it's too bad we lost. I don't think that Periscope's back. But that doesn't matter. It's, you know what, we had fun. I'm going to release this as a recorded podcast. Probably strip out the Jack Michaels interview just on its own and put Lars on its own, and it was fun. Yeah, I'm glad you asked a question. I was going to hand it over to you at that point. You know, we had two really good guests tonight. A lot of fun. Yeah,
it's you know, a fine line of not wanting to jump over somebody and cut them off and all that, but you got to counterpunch when you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of which, and for those still watching live on YouTube or Periscope, I don't think Periscope's on. I have told Mr. Dirsa he's running the show on Monday. So Mega Thread Monday, I'm going to sit quietly in the background if that's at all possible. And Mike's the host. We've got of course Rip the Ref coming back Monday at 9:30. We're going to start at 8:30. You and I. You ask all the questions. I'll maybe do the answers. And then 9:30 is Rip the Ref, and you know, maybe we'll call it an early night after we're done with Brit, or maybe not. We'll see how that goes. And then we're back next week. I've got guests sort of in the hopper, but I don't have any guests lined up. So if anybody's out there and they get a chance to listen, nominate some people. I mean, we're going to be streaming live. I personally, I love having Jack. I love the opportunity to talk to Jack and Robert Clark and these guys. Absolutely wouldn't trade that for the world. But I also love the opportunity to talk to other fans, right? And so if you know any Oilers fans out there, like Bob the goalie's called in a couple of times, which has been fantastic. I like Bob. You know, having Brit on who's, you know, a fan like the rest of us, who is somewhat of a media darling right now anyway, you know, that's fantastic too, right? So, you know, put out those things and then watch for the Oilerslive Oilers Twitter Awards. That's going to be a ton of fun, I think.
The Chris Russell leading the Oilers Twitter and blocks account award goes to.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna have a whole bunch of different things happening, and we're gonna keep with the live stream. To everybody out there, you know, as I said to Jack, stay happy, stay healthy, do your best to get through this, because we all will, and be good to each other. Mike, any last words before we call it a night?
Yeah, that was kind of you know, fun to have Lars with his comedic relief, and then to go to Jack. I'm just, you know, pretty grateful for you to ask me to ride shotgun with you on these. It's kind of a thrill of a lifetime for a podcast to get to talk to guys like Jack and our friend Lars and kind of everybody that we've dealt with, Robert Clark, and yeah, it's helping hopefully people get through, you know, this time, which isn't a lot of fun, but hopefully this takes a little bit of the tension out of people's minds and gets them reset and keep going.
Yeah, I'm sure that you know, it's helping a little bit. I've had some people reach out to me and I've been quite thankful. You have yourself a great night, and everybody look for the recording if you didn't catch the whole thing of Jack Michaels. Again, thanks to Lars, thanks to Jack. Everybody have a great night, and we'll see you again on Monday.